Hey y'all, Chris Cooking Nashville here with Miss Ash Taylor, my lovely wife. She's laughing because she knows that we had a very interesting comment that came through on a couple of my videos about me calling you my lovely wife, and apparently that's an insult. And I didn't realize calling my wife beautiful publicly to people and complimenting her on the fact that she's beautiful was an insult, but here we are. So now it's become a running joke. So
my lovely wife.
Yeah.
I mean, I like being told that I'm pretty. I don't know about most women watching, but I kind of like being told I'm pretty.
I mean, you know,
I don't mind it.
I thought it was a compliment. I thought it was a compliment to tell you that you're beautiful and to say that you're lovely and
you're being nice.
to acknowledge the fact that you're my wife, that I'm a married man, you know.
Yeah.
All of those things. But we're gonna give you guys an update on health and all of our interesting stuff this week. And I'm gonna put a picture on the screen. It's kind of hard to see because the only one I can find of me wearing this same shirt, I was actually laying on the couch. But I will then put another picture next to it. And this was a couple of days ago. I put this shirt on for the first time in, a long time. Long time, I guess. It's been a number of months since I've had this shirt on, and I didn't think anything about it. I just pulled it out and put it on, and I realized when I put it on, I turned around and I looked at her. I didn't even have to say anything, and she looked at me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, that shirt on you." And as you guys are seeing at this picture, it's like a dress.
Yeah.
It's huge on me and hangs down, and the sleeves come all the way down because my shoulders aren't pulling them back as much, and it's not tight around my belly here. Like there's all of this extra room in this shirt now that didn't used to exist in it. And you know, it's funny. This is a really good point that, you know, sometimes not only do people apparently not like when I call my wife lovely, but we also get the comment from time to time that we're overweight and all these different things. This is a really good point where the scale doesn't necessarily say that I've lost weight or gained weight or whatever. I'm kind of hanging in the same place. And it's been a while since I've been on a scale, but I was just kind of hanging in the same place. But the scale doesn't say anything is any different. But I put on my clothes and everything is different. And my body is just doing this healing and recomposition thing. So even though I'm not losing weight on the scale, I'm definitely losing body fat, probably gaining muscle and bone density, and things are healing and I'm feeling good and I'm doing better. So it's just a really good reminder out there for you guys. If someone's telling you you're fat and they're telling you you're not doing it good enough or any of this kind of stuff, just have the patience to sit back and do what you need to do with keto, ketovore, carnivore, whatever you're doing. Let your body heal. Let your body recompose. Let it take fat cells and turn them into muscle cells or eyeball cells or bone cells or whatever it is it does with all the pieces as it breaks them down. And don't worry so much about what the number on the scale says. If you're doing what's good for you and you're feeling good, your body will adjust in time. It may take time for that to happen, but it will adjust. And all will be well. So I put on this shirt and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I've really, really physically changed. And I think that's really cool. So that was a big win for me to just put this shirt on and realize how big it was. And especially I didn't say anything. She just turned around. She was standing in the bedroom with me and I put the shirt on and she turns around and she goes, "Oh my gosh, that shirt on you." I didn't say anything to her. She just reacted.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really, really cool. So that was a really big win for me this week. How are you doing? How is your health and your feelings and your diet and all of these things since the last video where we updated everybody?
Could you say that I'm lovely? No, I'm doing honestly really, really good. Before I go into how I'm doing though this week, I do have to say this shirt for sure, but there's probably in the past, I'd probably say about 2 weeks, like 3 different shirts that Chris has put on where it's like they fit him so day and night different. It's not even funny. Like it's very noticeable. I've also noticed like his wrist are actually getting smaller. There's a bracelet that I got him with our anniversary on it. I probably got it a couple years ago. And
2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. And he wore it the other night. We were playing a show and he put it on and it's like I even noticed how loose it was fitting on his wrist. So the scale may not say that you've lost weight, but I'm definitely noticing the way your clothes are fitting for sure. Plus your mental clarity, your energy, mood, that kind of stuff. Like definitely noticing it in you. So I think you're doing great. But no, I'm doing really good though. I feel like my last week of carnivore was interesting. with all like, the bathroom issues and oxalate dumping, kind of all the stuff we had been talking about. But I'm happy to say that this week everything is, I felt like, really evened out. I've been having a little bit of kefir here and there just as I feel like I may need it. Honestly, I'm not even drinking it every day at this point, maybe a couple times a week. Weight-wise, my last week, we kind of talked about how I basically didn't lose or gain. I just kind of stuck around the same thing, but I was honestly kind of scared to hop on a scale because I felt like my body had just lost so much that it was then like holding on to stuff. So this past week, I've definitely let go of a lot of, I would say, like inflammation, water, everything's kind of evened back out. I have not stepped on a scale because I just honestly did not want to. I did it like once a week, for our health vlogs, but I'm like, I just kind of want to give my body more time. But
we're also not like, I mean, she was doing it for the health vlogs.
Yeah.
I was doing it when I was doing my 365 days of carnivore for a long time because I was doing my weekly health vlogs of that thing. But for the most part, beyond that, we're not a step on the scale every week kind of philosophy when it comes to the keto and carnivore thing. Once a week is the maximum you should be stepping on a scale, unless there's some data you're trying to get specifically. Like, I wonder how much fluid fluctuation is happening from day to day. Like, okay, maybe you step on daily just because you're trying to see. But that's a very different mindset than stepping on every day hoping you've lost weight every single day. Like, that's a bad idea. Because you are setting yourself up for failure because no one's body works that way.
Right.
And when you get on expectantly or hopeful to see the number go down, and then you inevitably do see it go up because you have fluid fluctuation going on, and then you get inside your own head about how, well, now I've gained weight and what, I mean, it ruins
it messes
your
with you.
whole perspective.
I'm personally someone that gets unmotivated because I feel like if I go through the whole week and it's like you don't have any cheats and you're doing your thing and all this stuff. And especially like if you are trying to adjust to things and like you're in the bathroom every 5 minutes and you're breaking out in pimples and zits and all these things. And, it's like kind of frustrating. And it's like you hope that when you get on the scale, it's like, tell me I've lost 10 pounds this week, right? I mean, that's like kind of what you hope for. But then it's like, well, that's unrealistic. I weighed last week and I know I hadn't gained or lost, but I could tell that like my body was still just in a weird place. So I honestly, just for the sake of like not stressing about it or making myself feel bad, I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to weigh this week. I still feel, I can tell like my wedding ring went back to fitting way looser though.
Yeah.
Can tell in clothes. We have a thing coming up and I actually had to buy a brand new swimsuit, which is really exciting. And it's actually 2 sizes smaller than what I had just bought in a couple years ago. So I mean, that's a good thing. So, I mean, I'm definitely seeing things where it's like inflammation leaving the body. All is good, but I just said, why weigh myself and just kind of be like freaked out about it? Like, calm down. Like, it's all good. But honestly, this has been interesting though, because it's my first, week not doing the full-on carnivore, but I have remained pretty much carnivore throughout the week.
Yeah.
I did have my first kind of experiment thing like we talked about, where it's like, so I did carnivore for a month and I thought it was great. Definitely I'm just trying to even out my body and everything though.
Right.
And so this week I remained pretty much carnivore, but I was like, hey, I kind of want to try some different things and then just see how I do. And so I had, Chris made a delicious, basically I guess that would be Ketovore, the white chicken chili.
Yeah, Ketovore white chili.
And it had onions in it. And so I had some of that.
Onions and a few poblano peppers.
Super good. Didn't seem to bother me in the least bit. I enjoyed that. And then I did have lettuce. Yeah. Just a salad. I couldn't really tell a difference. So that's kind of just what I've had. And I haven't noticed any loss of energy, mental clarity. I haven't really noticed anything. So I think that's kind of why, though, going back to starting next week, like weighing, seeing what that does weight-wise, how I feel, whatnot. But just, once a week or so, just kind of trying something and seeing how it goes.
Right.
Trying to stay away from high oxalate foods. Speaking of, I think you should probably talk on this because you're the expert here, babe. I'm hanging out. But
if I'm the expert, y'all are in trouble.
No, you've been carnivore for a long time compared to me. Long time. And I also know that you watch a lot of YouTube videos and you're just, I feel like, fairly educated in all this stuff. But can you share with them?
I'm smart.
He's real smart. That's why I married you.
I'm a smart redneck.
He's a smart one.
I'm a smart redneck.
No, but maybe we were talking about mentioning it in this health vlog.
Yeah.
the video that you sent me. I think you should share with the folks about that, because I think they are going to find that very helpful.
Yeah, well, I sent this video over to her. It's by 5 Minute Body, and it was an interview with Sally Norton, and she's kind of the expert in the low carb space, if you haven't heard of her, where she talks about oxalates and the issues that oxalates cause. And she talks about like how do you sort of therapeutically get oxalates out of your body, and talks about the side effects of like oxalate dumping and the symptoms of being oxalate like toxic, basically. So she talks about all of those things. And this particular video, I'll link it down below if you guys would like to watch it, but she kind of just does a very quick kind of overview of here's what oxalates are, here's what they can do to you, here's the kinds of foods you find them in, and here's what you can do about it. And she herself is kind of like low carb, not really even necessarily keto. She does talk about the carnivore diet being like no oxalates, right? So that's one of many things about carnivore that does seem to be such a great benefit. She also says in there, for a lot of people, going just 90 days strict carnivore from a standard American diet that's full of oxalates, probably not a good idea. She talks about, when your body starts to do oxalate dumping and how sick it can make you. So, some of these things Ash dealt with, maybe that was oxalate dumping, maybe that was just her gut bacteria adjusting. I mean, we're not really sure because we're just at the beginning of this. I mean, 30 days is not enough to know much about anything of your body. It's a really good thing of like, hey, what is the initial experience you're going to have with carnivore? But there's so much more for us to investigate and understand. So we are just at the beginning of this, but it's good information for anyone at the beginning of this, I think, to have, and really even to have when you're much deeper into this. She says in this video how she has worked with people who have been carnivore for like 6+ years with no symptoms, and then suddenly they start oxalate dumping 6 years in. So oxalates are, if you don't know, they are these plant poisons, really. They're kind of like these crystals, like these little sharp crystalline things that are microscopic that are inside of many plant foods. And they go inside your body and they just tear everything up and they make you super sick. Your immune system has to deal with them. Which is one of the reasons people with autoimmune issues tend to do so well on carnivore, because they don't have oxalates in their body that the immune system then can't deal with. So it pulls all that out. And so this is why someone like, say, Nisha, for example, who's like, here's certain things that bother me and here's certain things that don't. She is figuring out what her body can and cannot handle with oxalates as someone with an autoimmune issues. So that's a really good example of what that is. But Sally Norton is talking about how, she would like slowly back away from oxalates. And then she's also talking if you're starting to experience like all these things, and there's a long list of symptoms. We pretty much both have like all of these symptoms in our lives, from the various times we've experienced this. So I think a lot of what we have dealt with, along with like the weight and the metabolic issues and all this stuff, some of this is probably oxalate toxicity. And now for both of us, oxalate dumping, as we have been over the last few years getting our health back in check. So it's good information to have. But as you're trying to deal with that, one of the things that Sally Norton's talking about is you can actually take something that has oxalates in it, like eat something. And you're not going hog wild here, but you can actually have something that has oxalates, and by putting some oxalates back into your bloodstream, after you've removed them all from your diet, or taken and really significantly reduced them in your diet, you add some back in with a food that you eat for a particular meal. Those are going to be absorbed. They're going to go into your bloodstream, because that's how nutrition works, right? Your body absorbs it, goes into your bloodstream. When the oxalates get into your bloodstream, when you get enough of them in there, it tells your body, stop dumping oxalates out of the cells back into the bloodstream. And that toxicity sort of settles back down because you've sort of triggered your body to stop dumping so many of them out of the cells simultaneously. And it sort of holds on to them, reabsorbs them, does whatever it needs to do, and it lets it all kind of filter back out. So if you're experiencing really bad oxalate dumping symptoms, or you're having these really bad oxalate toxicity problems, there's sort of a protocol she recommends of how you slowly back away from the oxalates. Or if you've already backed away and then you start experiencing the symptoms, how you can add a few back in to soften the blow of that as you continue to detoxify and heal. So that was just a really interesting video. I'll link that down below. You guys can watch that.
Yeah.
She has a book and she has so much more information than just what's in this interview, but it's a really good, I think, introduction and overview of what the deal is with oxalates and why this matters so much. And she does mention some of the top oxalate containing foods that you need to try to get out of your diet.
Yeah. When he sent that to me and then we were sitting here and he was telling me about it, I immediately told him, I'm like, we have to mention that in our next health vlog and share that video link though, because that is some invaluable information. And I wish we would have known that even like before I started carnivore.
Yeah.
And I just find it really, really honestly interesting. And like you said, it's hard because I'm so new to this and we're just trying to figure it out. Maybe what I was experiencing when starting carnivore was my body oxalate dumping and whatnot. I love what she says and I love the message and I just think that's great information. It kind of goes back to like, I think that this is clearly a long-term thing and not just something that we do for 30 days and then quit. But for me, it's kind of, I don't want to say there's no pressure with it, but I feel like so many people are just like, meat, salt, water. Dive in, go strict, like whatever. And it's like, I personally, like I know I'm married to Chris Cooking Nashville, but I'm my own person, okay? Like he knows he can't tame me. We've already had this conversation. But no, like I did carnivore of my own free will and I did keto of my own free will. And I'm really not on any side. I literally just am here to figure out like, I know I haven't eaten the best over the past my lifetime. And so it's like, how can I have a healthy body and a healthy life and like what are good habits? So whatever that looks like for me, whether that's carnivore, keto or whatever it is, but like what foods work and what foods don't. And I know that I really struggled my last week there of carnivore. And luckily the kefir that we got did seem to help. And now things seem pretty evened out. And I just thought when you were telling me about this information though, it's like, man, I really think we should share that with people because I know a lot of you guys are doing this with us where you're trying carnivore for the first time. Maybe you stopped at your 30 days. Maybe you're continuing to go.
Right.
But I even said early on, I think it was like week 2 or 3 that I was like, hey, like going, now that I'm knee deep in carnivore, it's like I was doing good and all, but I'm like, I kind of wish I would have like done, like I just kind of dove in like cold turkey. And I think that may have been part of the reason why my body reacted the way that it did. Some of the information that I thought was really, really interesting was you were talking about almonds. Yeah. She talks about almonds in that video.
She talks about almonds being pretty much just about one of the highest oxalate foods that are out there. And she was like listing off all these high oxalate foods and like taking them out of your diet kind of one at a time. And she literally is like, I mean, honestly, like if you're eating almonds, that's the first thing you need to just get out of your diet. Like you do not need to be eating those.
And I found that super interesting because my hometown, like where I'm from, actually produces more almonds than anywhere else in the US of A. I actually, even in college, grew up on an almond farm where we farmed different things, including almonds. And from the time that I was a child, I mean, young, up until well into my adulthood, like early and mid 20s, I would eat 10 plus almonds every single day. I was told that almonds were like the healthiest food you could have and they're so good for you. I mean, I would eat bags of almonds a week. And so I told Chris, I'm like, that made up a vast majority of my diet when I was younger, along with caffeine, energy drinks, and then things like fruits and veggies. I would eat bags of spinach for lunch and lima beans. I know that sounds weird, but like these were foods that I was told were super good for me. And so as a young adult and as a young lady, as a kid, it's like, this is what I ate every day.
One of the other things, because you said spinach. Spinach is another one of the up at the top of the list, high oxalate foods. Another thing she talks about in this video, if you guys go watch it, is spinach being like, people doing like the green smoothies, like the spinach smoothies. And she's talking about toxicity. And she's like, the bad thing about toxicity is that toxicity is usually measured in how much does it take to kill you. And that's not really a very accurate way to think about it for a lot of people, because if you're at that point, obviously there's no turning back. So we want to know what is harming you and what is not, right? But that's a much harder thing to calculate. But for something like a spinach smoothie, and she gives all the amounts, but she's basically talking about how this is the amount of oxalates that is a lethal dose. Like if you get this much in your body, you will die. Right. And it's different for everybody because it's a scale. So it's somewhere between 3 and 15 of these spinach smoothies and whatever amount of spinach that's in that smoothie that she's talking about would be a lethal dose to have that in a day.
Wow.
So you can literally drink enough spinach smoothies to kill yourself with oxalates. But the point that she's making is she goes, but what if those 15, because that's the top end of that range of how many it would take to kill people.
Yeah.
She's like, what if that 15 smoothies is spread across a week?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about how much oxalate you're putting into your body. And it may not be enough to kill you, but think about what that's doing to you.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
that's where things like oxalate toxicity come from. And we're doing this day in and day out with spinach and with almonds and with all of these other different things. Like she's talking about beans. You know, everyone talks about how beans are so good for you. They're full of lectins, which is another type of plant toxin, but they're also full of oxalates. You know, so I mean, we have all these different things, and our body is meant to handle some amount of oxalates. You know, she's discussing this, how our body can handle some. And in fact, our metabolism actually produces some of its own oxalates as part of what goes on in your body. So our body is meant to handle a small amount of them. The problem is we keep eating so much of them that our body can't keep up, and there's nowhere for them to go other than to just stick it wherever your body can put it to hang on to it.
Right.
You know, and it does things like it coats them in dead white blood cells. You know, or apparently, and this, I thought this was really cool, your immune cells will actually unwrap the DNA and use it to put a netting around an oxalate like spike that's tearing up your body to try to buffer what it's doing in your body.
Wow.
And so it's like, you do that. Well, yeah, no wonder your immune system doesn't work properly.
Well, that was the thing too, you know, when I was having handfuls and bags of almonds and having like things like spinach and lima beans for lunch and all that kind of stuff, I was constantly sick. And I always just thought, like growing up, I was just always told it's because of this or that, or, oh, you know, you had this thing when you were a kid, so now you have a weakened immune system. And I mean, and I dealt with that way into adulthood.
Right.
So that's why when you told me this and you were saying this, it was like my eyes like lit up and I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. I also think for me, and clearly I'm not a doctor, I'm just saying to me this made total logical sense, is if my whole life had kind of eaten that way. And when that was me eating healthy. Now you mix in just like healthy. Now you mix in the standard American diet, and you mix in alcohol, and you mix in being a touring musician, and you're on the road, and you're eating at McDonald's, and you're doing this. You start adding
latent cortisol, stress.
You start adding though, kind of like all of that up, and then I went keto, and clearly, I mean, I did definitely oxalate dumping, lost 100 pounds on keto over the course of those couple of years.
Sure.
Did my thing. Then when I went carnivore again, though, I mean, I feel like that had to have been oxalate dumping personally.
Yeah.
And like what you...
At least some of it, I would imagine.
Because like, I mean, just like my skin and like breaking out and like all the different things. But I'm like, after a lifetime of eating almonds and spinach every day, it would probably make sense why years later all of that is just still in my body, and my body was like, hey, we're flushing it.
Well, oxalate dumping, another one of the symptoms of that is something that can be like a rash, and she was talking about how she was having poison ivy that would pop up. I wonder if instead of being poison ivy, if that's what that was.
I would believe that.
Like oxalate dumping rash, basically, that would pop up in these random places. So guys, this is just something really interesting to kind of consider. And again, we're not doctors. We can't diagnose or give you medical advice here. But I do think that this information being out there is interesting, and I think you should go research it, and you should consider for your own body what symptoms are you experiencing, and however you best see fit, hopefully with the guidance of a physician of some kind, or whatever it is you decide to do, take a look at this and see if this is something that you're experiencing. And if you try carnivore and then suddenly you have all of these things, one, we said don't panic and, don't feel like you have to quit carnivore. But two, maybe learn to recognize some of these symptoms. And if you see it happening and it's really not like a little bit, but I mean, it's really debilitatingly affecting you.
Yeah.
Use some of those things that Sally Norton's talking about of how you can address this. And one of the things she talks about is like eating something that has some oxalates at dinner time to kind of settle your system back down by putting some in your bloodstream. She's like, there's no certain amount. Like for some people, you can have a cup of tea because tea has oxalates. You can have a cup of tea and that'll be enough to settle it back down. Some people, she's like, you got to eat a whole sweet potato. And apparently sweet potato is a very full of oxalates, bad for you thing from what she's saying. She's like, you got to eat a whole sweet potato before your body will finally settle back down. So you have to figure out how much for you will make the difference. And so I think this just kind of goes back to reinforcing that thing of, you need to learn your body. You need to know what makes you feel best. You need to understand and do the experiment for your own N=1 experiment for your own self. And this is why we all can't just go jumping online and judging each other and yelling at each other about who's the best carnivore and all the kind of stuff we were talking about, in our previous health vlogs and that kind of stuff. So
you got to take care of you. No one else is going to. You got to take care of yourself.
Right. Yeah. Right. You got to take care of you unless you meet someone like this who will help take care of you like my wife does. But
well, and that was the thing. I mean, you came to me and said you wanted to do carnivore, and I was like, yeah, go for it. And then I did keto. And I mean, it's like, I think if you love someone, you just want them to do what's the best for them. And if that means that Chris needs to be meat, salt, water, if that means he's okay to have an onion or something from time to time, cool. If he needs to have some tea to adjust, and if that keeps him going, it's like, I'm not gonna, yell at him and beat him up because he, had a glass of tea and he just okay, great.
Yeah.
It's just finding the balance to whatever works for you. But I think that goes back to, this is a long-term thing. So if you can't jump in cold turkey, if you've tried doing carnivore like me and you're like, man, I was really struggling, listen to this video, listen to this doctor's advice, and knowledge is power. And just
this is also why, if you're still struggling with all of this stuff and you're experiencing symptoms and you're fighting all of this stuff, one, don't beat yourself up over this.
Right.
And two, if things like carnivore recipes like I make, even if it's maybe not the ultimate thing that you want to do for your health, and I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it's not, that's up to you, but even if that's not ultimately where you want to go with your diet to, to control your health and fix these issues, that doesn't mean that you can't still use it to stabilize. These are the kinds of things that when you do whatever it is you can to help yourself feel stable and feel secure in this, I can do carnivore thing and I can stick to it, it makes it a lot easier to stick out a little bit of the unpleasantness of things like oxalate dumping. Because here's the reality, if you have all that stuff in your body, it's gonna have to come out eventually. One way or the other, for you to get healthy and feel your best health, it's going to have to happen. It just doesn't necessarily have to all happen at once, and it doesn't have to be that miserable, but there's gonna be days you're not gonna feel probably as good.
I think an example really quick, if I could share this, because I think every other industry in the world except for maybe the diet industry gets it. But, my mom works in essentially addiction and rehab and stuff like that. And my mom has smoked on and off my whole life. And so my grandfather also was a smoker. And so I've seen them both try to quit smoking multiple times. And the first time I remember watching my grandfather do it, it was cold turkey. And he had a really hard time with that. And then he eventually went back to it, because it never really fixed the habit or the problem or anything like that. It was just like he stopped for a while. First stressful situation, he was right back on it. Right. So he never actually dealt with the issues causing that addiction to smoking.
Like the underlying
what is the underlying cause? And then, with my mom, it's kind of the same thing, on again and off again. But, I was learning with my mom, she was at the doctor's and they were talking about it. But, in much like we're talking about foods that have poison in them that can literally kill you, things like cigarettes, one cigarette has 72 chemicals in it. Now, my mom was smoking a couple packs a day. So how many chemicals is my mom putting in her body? Right. Not even with the food that she eats. That's a whole nother story. But just smoking. So when you quit smoking, think about what they have you start doing. They have you start cutting back, right? So if you're smoking 3 packs a day, it's 2 packs, 1 pack, half a pack. Then they have things like the nicotine gum and the patches. Right. And what do those do? They slowly continue to cut back the amount of nicotine. And then they usually, put you into therapy if you're, if you're really trying to get those issues under control, into therapy to figure out, well, why do I smoke the way that I do? And why do I feel like I need to do this? And what is the reasoning behind it? So I think it's really interesting that, because I think we can agree that carbs and food is and can be an addiction for a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah, which is, I think, why our health was the way that it is, though. But I think it's very interesting, though, when you look at someone who is trying to quit smoking or coming off of drugs or different things. It's like they have all of these methods in place to slowly, over time, take the thing away that is harmful to them. And they wean them off slowly. And they help them try to figure out what is the underlying issue of why you are addicted to this thing. And then they give them support, encouragement, they set them up to succeed. And hopefully, if they listened, they quit smoking or they quit doing drugs or alcohol or, any of these things. And I just don't think that food is really any different.
Right.
But that's why, like, if you can just go cold turkey and you, for the rest of your life, can do meat, salt, and water, like, that's awesome. Like, right. And I'm sure there are people out there that can do that. I'm just saying, for the average person, if you're on a standard American diet, or if you're even keto or ketovore, and then you go to carnivore and your body's reacting in this way, so you need to add something in and then, go back and figure out what works for you. Why would you feel bad about it?
Right.
If this was quitting cigarettes instead of carbohydrates, you'd be on a nicotine patch where they slowly take it away, and you'd be going through all this stuff. So I just find it interesting that it's like, replace the word, cigarette or alcohol, just replace that with carbs.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how is this any different? It's still an addiction.
I also have a feeling that people who are going to tell me I'm not a real carnivore, or might tell you that you're not a real carnivore, or that you're not real keto, or whatever the judgment phrase is they're going to use to call you fat and to call you unsuccessful and to tell you you're not right and all this kind of stuff, they probably would do the exact same thing if you were trying to quit smoking or quit drinking or quit drugs or anything else. If you were struggling with that and you were weaning yourself down or going through some program or whatever you were doing, they'd probably say the exact same thing about that. That's just kind of the reality of dealing with people like that, which is why when you hear those people, you let it go in one ear and out the other, and you go, yeah, you're dumb, and you just move on, because you guys are worth doing that work and taking the time, and you don't have to be in a rush. And I think, just like this shirt being this big on me, I'm not in a rush to get to where I'm like skinny and a six pack and all this kind of stuff. I'd love to eventually get there.
Sure.
I would love to eventually get there. I'd love to be able to walk up to the side of a pool somewhere and pull my shirt off and it looks like one of those Baywatch scenes where the lifeguard's running down the beach and he's got the big muscles. Sure, I'd love to look like that. I'm not going to kill myself to try to force my body to look like that. I'm going to take care of my health. I want to feel good. I want to lose the weight as my body is ready. And I want to just take care of the things that are necessary so I have the best quality life that I can. And if along the way I get a six pack and some pecs and I can look like David Hasselhoff running down the beach, great. That works for me. And you know what? And if I don't ever quite get exactly that, maybe I'll work on specific things to try to make it happen someday. Maybe I won't, but that doesn't define my value.
No.
And it doesn't define your value, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you need a six pack, whether you need pecs, whether you need the little skinny waist, whether you need the big bust and the big hips and the curve in between. None of that matters. None of that matters. That is all BS that is shoved down our throats by other people who need to elevate themselves above us. So don't worry about all of that. Take the time to take care of yourself, feel good, do the research, know what you need to do. And then if you need to go back and you need to eat whatever it is, some sweet potato, or have some tea, or whatever the other things are that might have some oxalates in it that would help you get a week or 2 or 3 further into your healing journey.
Yeah.
Do it. And if somebody goes, well, you're not a real carnivore, tell them to shut up. Who cares? There is no real carnivore. There's not an award. I don't know if you guys realize this or not.
Wait,
there's
not?
Like, nope, no awards.
Oh.
Nope, there's no award ceremony at the end of the year where everybody gets trophies for how good of a carnivore they've been. And that's the thing. People act like that. And it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, this also goes back to my point about if you were trying to quit smoking or alcohol or anything above, what happens is you go to AA meetings. So you're not surrounded by people that are going to tell you, man, I can't believe you quit eating carbohydrates, or I can't believe you stopped drinking and now you're no fun.
Yeah.
You're going to be surrounded by people that are of a like mind, that are also trying to quit, and you get together and you encourage each other to keep going and keep doing, and you share your stories and you motivate each other. other. And essentially, I feel like here in our community, that's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
We share our stories. People comment, they share theirs. We are a family. We are a support system for each other.
Yep.
Doesn't matter if we've never met in person or not.
Yep.
That's what this is, because essentially we're all here, and no matter where you fall in the proper human diet spectrum,
Yeah.
or if you're even not on it, the proper human diet yet, maybe you're watching these videos trying to figure out, hey, what is this
Considering
about?
this?
Yeah, maybe I do. It's like, well, this is what it is. It's a group of people that basically are trying to get their life and their health back.
Yep.
And this is why we're not dogmatic or anything, because we're literally a support group. We're all addicts and we're all trying to quit.
Right.
And so if I'm an addict, why would I point at someone else and say, how dare you have a cup of tea and oxalates? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And if you're not an addict, you're not the person who should be telling the addicts how to get over their addiction. If you've never experienced it,
you can't understand that.
Yeah. If you've never experienced it for yourself, you need to butt out of the conversation. Doesn't mean you can't give good information and encouragement if you have it, but trying to tell them what they need to do, you need to butt out. And if you have had that and then you're tearing people down, well, then you're just a waste of human space, because you're using something that you used to deal with as a way to tear other people down. So if someone's doing that to you guys in your life, you know that's not someone worth listening to. So welcome to CCNCA, Chris Cooking Nashville, Carbaholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we're all here. We're here to help you guys.
Right.
And this is what we do. We are going through this one step at a time, and we're working to try to help lift each other up and try to figure out together, how do we make the best choices we possibly can. And along with this, we're fighting the psychological side of this.
Sure.
Which is I miss my grandmother's potato salad. I miss my mom's mashed potatoes. Man, I wish I could have pizza night with my family again. I miss having mac and cheese with my girlfriend watching movies. That's why my recipes exist.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing here. And that's why so many people, when they don't get why maybe you might like my recipes or why we do the recipes, why I create them, they don't understand that it's because they're too narrow-minded to realize this is a bigger issue than just how many carbs do you put in your mouth on a daily basis. There's so much more to being a human being than that. So we use carnivore, keto, whatever it is we're doing, as a tool, but it does not define what you are as a human being. And that's the difference. That's the important part of it. And that's why we are here for you, because you are a human being. We are human beings. And the only way to do this is if we support each other and we do this together. It is the only way that we get better at this.
That's right.
It's the only way we fix the problem.
Yeah.
Permanently. I mean, anybody can fix the problem for a week. Anybody can go suffer through being a carnivore by themselves for a week or a month or maybe even a year and just grit your teeth and hang in there. But if you don't have the right support system, the right philosophy, the right tools at your disposal, and the realistic attitude of what you're going to have to do to take care of these things and permanently change and fix these things, you are setting yourself up for a severe disappointment at some point in time, because you're going to realize no human being has enough willpower to just will themselves into being perfect at whatever that thing is. No one. I don't care. You can go find the most important, ripped, six-pack, carnivore promoting athlete in the world. I guarantee you they're not perfect. They may be very close to it because they've worked really hard on it, but I guarantee they're not perfect. There's something about them that if you looked close enough and you really dug down in there, you'd find what it is they're not a real carnivore about at some point in time. It may only be once a year, but I guarantee there's going to be something. Because no one is perfect. The world doesn't work that way. No one is perfect. Ever. So instead of trying to be perfect, support each other, and let's just try to get better at it every day. And let's try to deal with those underlying things so that we can use the recipes, not use the recipes, eat a bite of food that has oxalates, not eat a bite of food that has oxalates. I don't care. Whatever it is that works for you and makes you feel better, just do that. And let's just support each other in that. And we'll use keto and ketovore and carnivore as tools that we can move back and forth and flex through to deal with the psychological side of being a human being, while we deal with the physiological side of things like oxalates, carbohydrate addiction, the marketing of the world around us and the food industry, like all these things we have to battle, we use those as tools to deal with all of that.
Amen. Hallelujah.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you have any other final thoughts on any of this today?
I just agree with you. I think that the number of carbs that you consume in a day does not equal your value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people that come on and are dogmatic and try to bully or belittle someone else, honestly, is just coming from a place of arrogance and ego and conceitedness. And I think that this is a long-term thing, and just want to encourage and keep everyone motivated just to keep doing what it is you're doing. And if you have struggles, comment down below. Tell us about it. We would love to encourage you.
Yes. I'm sure there's lots of other people in the community that when they see your comment, and they would love to encourage you as well, and maybe share their story.
Yes.
You guys do that in the comments. Share with each other what you're going through and what your struggles are. Be real.
Yeah. And welcome to Carbohydrate Anonymous.
That's right.
That's right. No, I think this is great. And I'm excited to see what people comment below and what they're sharing their struggles are, and excited to go comment and motivate them. And
absolutely,
I think we're going to be in for a great rest of our week. I'm feeling good about it.
Great.
Your bread recipe is out. It's doing great. It's delicious.
Yep.
Life is good.
Yep. Well, if you guys haven't seen that yet, I'll link that down below as well. Go make that bread, because it is fantastic, and I've been working on that one a very long time, trying to get it to where it works right. And listen, I've had a bunch of people sending me pictures that they've already made the bread, and they look incredible. There's a few people out there that have tried it and they have not had success with it. But if you just come to the channel and you comment and you tell me why, or you send me a message, I'm more than happy to help you figure out why. And we'll diagnose it, and we'll make sure that you can get it right. And then if you do it and you get it right and you still don't like the recipe, that's cool. That's totally fine. Everybody has different tastes, but let me help you make sure you can get it right so that you really know whether you like it or not. And then we'll go from there. Yeah. Guys, that's all we've got for you today. I think we're going to go film a recipe video here in a minute.
Yeah.
So we're going to get to doing that, and there's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming on the channel. I'm going to link some great stuff down below for you. My links to different things, our salty from Keto Chow. That Keto Chow link will be down there if you guys are not using the salty packets and you're looking for some electrolytes. That's one of the things you can do as therapy against those oxalates. If you're getting more electrolytes, your body can handle the detoxing of those oxalates better. So salty is really great for that. I think that's why we probably feel so good on salty. So anyway, I'm going to link that down below. A bunch of other things are down there. You guys go check it out. If you have questions, let us know. Put your comments down below. Let us know what things you're struggling with, and encourage each other in the comments, because that's why we're all a community. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Chris Cooking Nashville and my lovely wife, Ash Taylor. Guys, make sure to eat your meat, love your life, and we're going to see you right here at the dining room table for some more health vlogs, and I guess in the kitchen for some more crazy recipes. Bye.
Hi, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Come here often?
Yes.
There's one.
Yep.